welcome to Night Clerk Radio, episode 84, where I am Burke, and I am saying the episode number correctly this time, instead of being off by one last episode and cutting it out, like a little editing, chopped and screwed myself into accuracy, Ross.
You could have re-recorded yourself saying that.
No, that never sounds the same.
Yeah, it's true.
The energy is never the same.
It's true.
I've tried that.
Yeah. I've tried the same thing for other podcasts too, and it just doesn't work. Yeah.
No, you can never reproduce it. It's interesting. Like the room tone's always a little different and everything.
That too. Yeah. Anyway, we're all on a great start on this topic.
Yeah, no, well, we are, because we're starting the topic now. This episode, we're talking about a real touchstone of sample material for vaporwave, which are the K-Mart tapes, which I'm sure people have heard about or have experienced in some sense. So the K-Mart tapes were a collection of cassette tapes from an employee at K-Mart in like the late 80s to early 90s at the very least. Mm-hmm. Mark Davis, if I remember right, his name. And he just worked at K-Mart, and they had an in-store radio that was like jokingly like KMRT. So it sounds like a radio station. And it would just be, an in-store audio that would play music and ads and other copy, everything from cassette tapes. And he noticed that they didn't do anything with the old tapes. They just kind of sat around for a couple days or weeks after they had exhausted their usage, because they're kind of by month, basically. So he was like, I'm just going to take these. Like, we throw them out anyway. So for like 4 years, he collected something like 56 tapes, roughly, from like the late 80s to early 90s, and just sat on them. And as sort of a lost media's kind of treasure trove, he just threw them up on archive.org in like
2015.
Okay, so that's actually more recent than I thought. Yeah, it was like 2015, threw them up on archive.org, and people were like, holy shit, this rules, both from like a lost media standpoint, but also just go hardcore with the plunderphonics on this. There's so much to work with. It's like these weird digitized cassettes, so it's already like kind of warbly and weird and haunted and old.
And very well worn cassettes, right? Like each one was played hundreds of times probably. Like
Yeah, exactly. So like, because it was just running for like 10 hours or whatever, however long.
Day after day for like a month or whatever.
Yeah. And yeah, they've spawned a whole host of inspired vaporwave and other genre albums, which we'll talk about too today, but this is as much a topic episode to me about like plunderphonics and lost media and these tapes as much as it is about the specific albums.
Yeah, so looking at the archive.org page for which is called Attention K-Mart Shoppers, it's a special collection. The mentions basically in 1993 they replaced the tapes with satellite programming, so that's why all the tapes ended in 1992. Also on March 1, 1992 was the 30th anniversary of K-Mart. So they had a special tape with facts about Walmart, fun, all kinds of things. So that tape is an interesting one to listen to. But also after he launched this collection, got popular, other people started contributing material as well, including reel-to-reel tapes from the 70s, because Walmart was doing this for a long time, obviously, right? And so you can hear stuff from like all the way back to like 1973 that were submitted by other people. So there's literally dozens of tapes and of all kinds now. And they have little screen like photos of the cassette or the record or whatever. And they even have some VHS tapes. Exide Automotive and Marine Batteries, an overview from 1993. Yeah. So, yeah. And this is one of the foundations of Vaporwave's inspiration, right? Is muzak. And muzak is not just a made up word. Like that was a company name that started doing this. And so this is something that, generations of people listen to, especially like employees of K-Mart for like thousands of hours, right? Like over their careers, and going shopping every week or every month at Kmart, you would just hear some of this stuff. So yeah, no, it's fascinating. It's really cool stuff. And I found some other material that was incidental, like the whole history of muzak and like background music as a thing is really fascinating as well. But yeah, these tapes are great. They're interesting to listen to. There's like YouTubes of like just the announcements. Like they cut out all the music and just have the original material Kmart produced for their stores. Yeah, that chipper like, hey, welcome to Walmart or welcome to Kmart. We have a great deal. We hope you're having a great day. That kind of stuff.
The tapes have like cheesy broadcasters, like you're listening to KMRT, home of the deals.
Yeah,
like that type of nonsense. It sounds like somebody making fun of Adrienne Barbeau in like The Fog or something.
Yeah, exactly. But that was like they were sincere, at least back in time of day.
Yeah.
Like this level of dripped in irony is like a thing that is definitely like from the 50s until up until the 90s, like sincerity was the norm, right? Like it was not drenched in irony and sarcasm. Like that was sort of a big cultural shift, I think, that started.
Seinfeld's fault.
Seinfeld and The Simpsons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Among others, but that sort of meta shift to like, isn't this all stupid that we're sitting around and watching shows? It's pretty stupid, huh? Tune in next week.
One of the interesting things I found was looking through some of these YouTube videos and reading about this. Someone mentioned, "Oh man, this stuff is like the successor to the Seeburg," and I was like, "What the hell is the Seeburg?" So the Seeburg was a competitor to the Muzak Corporation, where they would ship out these custom record machines that would have a stack of 40 records, each with 25 songs. So they would call it like the Seeburg 1000, right? Because it had 1,000 songs on it. Each record had 20 songs on a side, and it could play both the top. It was a double-sided record. And they weren't standard size, right? Like you could only play them on these machines, or you have to customize a record player in order to play it. But it was automated, right? It would play the top of record one and then the bottom of record one, then move on and just go through all 25 records. And it's the most Fallout music you could fucking imagine. It's there's actually a website now, Seeburg 1000, that has this stuff, and you could they stream it 24/7, and there's a whole thing about it. It's very interesting. And so, yeah, there's just decades and decades of this theory that like, oh yeah, background music makes workers more productive and makes people more likely to buy, and like middle management and executives bought into this shit. And so they would set up like sound speakers and just be piping the shit every day at work. And like the Seeburg had different records for different moods. Like industrial workers want a more peppy thing like polka marches and like but if you're at a shopping thing, maybe a little more leisurely, a little more mid-tempo, and like
make a good calm decision to buy.
Yeah, exactly. It was like this entire pseudoscience about like what to get more efficiency out of your workers by playing like shitty music. And it's like, with 1,000, each song was only a couple of minutes. So even 1,000 songs was like 38 hours of music altogether. So just imagine every week you're listening to the same music, and because of the way it loops, it's probably the same song. Every Monday at 8:25 a.m. you're hearing the same fucking song for every day you're at the office for 10 years. Like, yeah, no wonder people drank a lot in the 50s, 60s. And the Kmart is a proud successor to this. Like, it's no connection, but it's the same industry, same mindset, right?
Yeah, I mean, you imagine these Kmart tapes going back to those on loop. I mean, they were what, like 30 minutes a pop? Like 30 minutes aside. And two sides, of course. Yeah. Because it has like the auto reverse where it just rewinds the one while playing the other or whatever. I think, is that what that means?
Yeah.
So there's no break. I really wish there's actually like a rewind break where it's like a 30-minute loop and then everyone has to stand around in silence while the tape rewinds. That would be amazing to me, but
yeah,
never gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, you imagine, you're working at Kmart. You got like an hour loop of music. Ugh.
Yeah, especially if you had or maybe 2 hours if it had like a double deck system where it would just switched from one tape and go bounce back and forth. So just listening, even 2 hours, it's the same 2 hours. So like an 8-hour shift, you're listening to the same thing 4 times every fucking day.
And I mean, I know that's like, it's satellite piped in. It's not the same, but I've worked plenty of retail jobs, and yeah, they just pump in music, especially when I worked at a camera store that was like embedded in a department store. So it was like the camera department in like a larger JCPenney's type place. And yeah, I mean, I heard probably the same 20, the same 20 songs or whatever.
Yeah, God.
For like a year. So I always joke, the music of the 80s, 90s, and today, because it was basically, it was like, here's our one Bon Jovi song. Here's our one John Mayer song. Here's our one Matchbox 20 song or whatever. It's like, oh my God, please kill me.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, the reaction to this, like to these Kmart tapes, like if you look at the YouTube comments and stuff like that, it's mostly very positive. It's like, oh, I remember this from my childhood, going to the weekly store or monthly thing with my parents and hearing this music as we shopped, and it was a very fun time for me and blah blah blah. But like, you're only listening to like, yeah, it's all new to you, like you're only listening to it for 10 minutes. But and some of the employees, probably the ones who look this up, but like for us, we can come into it, listen to as much as we want, and then stop. We're not forced to listen to it. Like, it's a very different experience for those workers.
Yeah.
And even like local people, like even if you're just listening to a local radio, it's like, you know, when you're working, right, you have control over the radio. You could turn it to a different station. Like, this is stuff that's piped in from above and you don't have access to the machine, right? Like, you just have to listen to it. There's no, it's just part of your job is to listen to this. And God, such a different experience. It's not as fun when I would imagine.
That's the other thing about the, like, oh, I remember this. And you know, some people might, but it strikes me as like fairly difficult to believe that you truly remember like 15 minutes of music that played like in 1989. Cause like I went to Kmart a lot because it was like the only big store in the town I grew up in until like the mid 90s when more development came in and they built like a Walmart and other stuff. Like Kmart was the place to go in my town. So like I've gone to Kmart a lot, but like I don't think I can pull up like the July 89 one.
Oh, no.
Which would have been around my birthday and been like, oh, yeah, I remember spending my allowance money for my 6th birthday buying Ninja Turtles toys.
Yeah, Ninja Turtle toys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I Ninja Turtle toys.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because I blew like all of my money on that Technodrome.
Oh, damn.
You know, my mom was like, don't you want other toys? I'm like, no. Just the Technodrome, please.
Yeah, we got the blimp at one point. I remember that.
Oh,
yeah, that was a big expense. Yeah.
But I guess the larger point is that like I think any actual claim of memory is just this like general familiarity that I think your brain kind of turns into like a memory. I'm sure I do that too.
Yeah.
It's not like a criticism, but you have to step back and be like, oh yeah, I don't really remember this in the same way as I remember other things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the illusion of a memory. It's the allusion to a memory, you know, right? Like it's
right.
It sounds like it should be there, but like I think that's all like, yeah, all this material. And what's amazing is that this is all so incidental. It just one dude happened to keep all the tapes, and the same dude decided to digitize them because he liked working at Walmart or Kmart. I keep saying Kmart. And he worked at Kmart. He thought it would be neat. And so now we have this priceless, unique historical artifact of like what this music was like. So for music historians and cultural historians and like a generation of artists, right? Like no one's copyright claiming this. It's all basically abandoned. It's not, it's in that gray status, right? It's not public domain because it's not explicitly. And it's obviously a lot of covers of copyrighted, you know, popular music, but it's all available for people to use. And it's just because of one dude. Oh yeah, maybe somebody would like this and throwing it up there. And it's just incidental. Like there was no like professor or like grad student who was doing it as their work. It's just like, yeah.
A musicology project for my PhD or something. Exactly. I do think kind of this lost media and this ability to kind of induce a sensation of a memory that you may or may not have actually had is why it probably became so interesting in vaporwave and produced a lot of music sampled off it. So we're going to talk about 2 albums. Both are very different, even though they came out around the same time. And both highlight, I think, the range of what you can do with plunderphonics. So I'm not going to do like too many samples or stuff. And we're not doing like album segments like a normal episode. So I'm just going to say the first album was K-Mart, 1989 to 1992. This is the definitive edition by Power PC, Millennium Edition. I think this is, when you think of like what you can do in vaporwave with this tapes, this is the album that probably pops into most people's heads. It is very classic vaporwave. So 2016.
Well, the original edition. The definitive edition is like a remastered or like.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. The original was like 2016 and the definitive was like 2019 or something.
Something like that.
Bounced around between labels.
Yeah, it was only like a couple months after the tapes were released, right? It was like
people worked with it really fast.
Yeah, I mean, as soon it got kind of viral when it came out. Like I saw it, I saw it on Metafilter with a huge discussion of people, and it bounced around and all like, check out the K-Mart tapes. And yeah.
Because I have a friend who's like really into lost media. And I remember maybe even before they ended up on archive.org, or before I knew they were on archive.org, might be more accurate, is the video you're talking about where Mark Davis has a YouTube video, he has a channel where he like just posts like, hey, here's all these tapes I have and stuff. And that was, there's also like a really positive response on that video of people being like, oh man, this is awesome. This is a treasure trove, et cetera. And him just showing off like stacks and stacks of K-Mart tapes. But yeah, so the PowerPC album is, again, I think going more for that hauntology Mallsoft angle. It's much more about like reverb, slowing things down, making them very atmospheric, very hypnagogic, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, this is also like Mallsoft, right? Like this is memories of things that you think you have a memory of. This is music you've never actually listened to, but you have a memory of listening to it, like you were saying earlier. So yeah. But yeah, very classic vaporwave, very classic hypnagogic, peak vaporwave, as you would say, as I would say. Yeah, no, I love it. It's very ethereal. It's very haunted. It has all the classic techniques of vaporwave, you know, pitch shifting, distortion, reverb, to give it a very disassociative feel to it. Like, yeah, I love the original album notes for it. The year is 1989. You're at Kmart checking out the new styles and deals, but something isn't right. You don't feel right. The year is 1990X. You're at Kmart. Bye.
Yeah, because there's also the little 3-track album was K-Mart 1990X that they also released.
Actually, I'm not listening to that one.
But also, this does have that little bit of like vaporwave, like little thin layer of irony on top of it. Mostly in the like track titles, which are either K-Mart phrases and brands. Like, you know, track 1 is Blue Light Specials going on now. A few are links to things that like really don't exist anymore, unfortunately. Like a 3D rendered JPEG
of something from Imager. Yeah.
There's a YouTube video that's private now.
You can pull up the YouTube video through the archive.org of it, through the Wayback Machine. And it's just people walking through a Kmart right before it's about to close.
And then there's a paste bin to text that's like, this is real life. Don't you like these sales? This is real life. This is real life. And then a link to a tweet that no longer exists. So good times all around.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's other ones that are like dance to aisle 5 and enjoy the sales, or I can't see straight, but the savings are so clear. I wish she was here to experience the sales. Little longing.
Yeah. The dream is over. Appropriate title for an id track. Yeah, no, this is a great classic vaporwave. Very, it's calming yet like very. You're haunted. You're not actually real. This Kmart has been abandoned for 20 years. You're hallucinating. Like,
yeah, exactly. So just to be fair to the album, so at least play one sample.
Okay.
So here's a bit from track 19.
And Mrs. Swimwear Department. We have a large selection of 1- and 2-piece styles in a variety of fashion colors. Just in time for those hot summer days at the beach or pool. The girls department has new transitional arrivals. Girls transitional VE separates, similar to moms, are now in store. You just can't miss with the value and fashion offered in our girls department. We have the summer and transitional fashions you've been looking for. Take advantage now for the best selection. As always, thank you for shopping at K-Mart.
So track 19 is wonderfully titled, I Need to Get Up. I Can't Fall Asleep Here. The savings are too good. And I think that really highlights like the real vaporwave styles. Like there's an announcement about like fashion. It's the fashions you've been looking for. And it's like this, you know, reverby, boomy, kind of echoey, distorted voice kind of ringing out through all this muzak. So that's just to me a good example of like that classic vaporwave that people have done with the K-Mart tapes.
Yeah, no, it's great. Highly recommend if you like hypnagogic or Mallsoft or sort of a mix of the both.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not quite just standard Mallsoft, right? Because it's a little more like distorted. It's a little like Mallsoft is very much the field recording aesthetic, right? Like you're at a mall and you can hear the music and it's like reverby and distant and stuff like that. But like Hypnagogic is like you're hearing the music, but you're hearing it differently because you're all nodding off and everything's getting weird.
Yeah, that like fog of memory type effect of like everything's a little muddled.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So just absolutely great album to just sit and just have playing. People probably have heard of it. I mean, it was a very popular album, if I remember right. It really...
Yeah, by vaporwave standards, this is like a classic all-timer.
Yeah, I should have stated that sooner. Yeah, this is like really a classic album of both the genre and using the K-Mart tapes. But the reason I chose it, aside from being a classic and a great album and a good reason to re-listen to it, is that it is so different from the album that you chose, which sort of kind of inspired this whole topic episode.
Yeah, so this album, I found out about it and I was like, oh, we need to do, like, one thing, this is a lo-fi album, which is not something we cover a lot of. So I was like, oh, I'm excited about that. But then it's like, it's called Attention K-Mart Choppers by Juicy the Emissary. This is a lo-fi hip-hop / turntablist, chopped and screwed plunderphonics approach to the K-Mart tapes. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's just play a sample to get it right now. That is from track 5, which is Attention Kmart Choppers A5. All the track titles are just A1 through A6 and the B1 through B6, which is great. And this is, lo-fi hip hop, like very strong beats. They really took the plunderphonics approach of just like taking these sounds and chopping them up into new elements, like into new instruments, essentially. And it's great. This is a short album. It's only like 23 minutes long. But like it's super re-listenable. You could put it in any kind of like mix about lo-fi hip hop. And oh god, I love this album. This album's so fucking cool. It is. Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like Koala Kid and DJ Spooky in terms of style. Like that very precise. Like there's this really cool contrast between like how well structured the beats are and the music is and how it sounds. But like the source of the samples are very like has that analog fuzziness in like of the 70s and 80s. So there's this really interesting contrast between how they're structured and what they sound like. And this is like the height of plunderphonics. This is what like the kind of things I want plunderphonics artists to do, right? Is to like transmute this acoustic lead into gold, like to transform this material into something that you could hear it where it came from, but it sounds so different you wouldn't have imagined this would have been possible. It's just so cool. I really love it.
I really like this album too. It struck me as how different it is from like the more Mallsoft vaporwave approach. Like I did not expect it. I should have probably, but given the title, but it is just so meticulously put together. Like it really is in what you were saying, like the classic plunderphonics in the Oswald essay sense of like, take other people's music, make it unrecognizable and into your own instruments to create your own new music. And there's like a few little bits where there are samples playing. I think like Big Girls Don't Cry plays at the beginning of one, just like the closest you get to just hearing a like unedited pop song, but it's like used more as a sample versus, I guess I'm going to draw the distinction between like sampling, which is just playing something recognizable, and like this like plunderphonics of cutting that sample up into something completely new and unrecognizable.
Yeah, taking that drum beat and just restructuring it and making it into a new taking like one sound of one drum hit for like 2 seconds and turning an entire new beat out of it. Yeah, that's from track 8. Also, track 12, the last track, had a whole little Christmas song hook, which was great. And yeah, oh god, I love those. It does get a bit vaporwavy, like in track 9, with like some pitch shifted vocals, and it's really cool. I really want to see more things like this, because like, you know, lo-fi especially gets very samey, especially if you listen to a lot of like chill hop and lo-fi girl and those kind of like the big quote unquote labels for lo-fi music. But this sounds just so distinct and so creative too.
Yeah, and both of these are interesting given the kind of, you mentioned earlier, like issues of like ownership and copyright and just sitting on some corporate tape. Because by repurposing that, it also highlights kind of another aspect of plunderphonics, which is pointing out that a lot of that copyright law is silly, and that you are just sitting on all these tools that other people could use to make great music. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have much to go on beyond that, but it's just in my mind because there's all these like recent ridiculous copyright trials where people are kind of like patent trolling each other off melodies where like, oh, this Ed Sheeran melody is very slightly to this old melody. I need $40 million. It's like, oh, it's just,
yeah. That Ed Sheeran, I think, lawsuit, which was fortunately, it sounded like the right decision was made, but like it seems like every hip hop artist in particular gets hit with like, oh, you sampled this drum, this drum loop from this other song from 20 years ago. You owe me, $1 million or whatever. And getting into those finer points, you have to, license your samples and stuff like that. But like, then there's small artists like, well, no one's going to give a shit because I don't have enough money to be worth suing.
But also, I'm going to chop this up so much. Damn copyright bots are never going to find me.
That's true. Yeah, that's the real. This is like, God, what is it? The Australian group with the Frontier Psychiatrist, Avalanches. They had so many samples on their album, like they even don't remember how many they have. So they couldn't tell you. And they say, oh yeah, it's like over 1,500 easily. And so like it becomes this entirely new sound, making instruments from recorded sound. Like that's the whole goal of plunderphonics. That was the original, like, hey, we have this recording technology. Let's use it to make new sounds that are interesting and unique. And I do want to mention track 6 was cool because it did remind me of a Scooby-Doo cartoon for some reason, although a little more interesting beats. But, like Scooby-Doo cartoons, especially the classic ones, have a very distinct musical sound, at least to me. And it's just fun. And yeah, this is definitely an album that's going to go in heavy rotation because it's like, I want to listen to lo-fi. I'm just going to put on a couple albums. Like, I want to find more lo-fi hip hop at this standard. Like, I like chill hop. I like lo-fi girl. It's fine. But like, I feel like I want to find more lo-fi that raises the bar like this. So I guess that's something for a future episode.
Yeah, you can check out a few other of even their albums. Or related stuff. Like the most recent is Comfort Food, which is Krispy Kreme.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Juicy the Emissary, you mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to look through his discography and see what else is up his sleeve. But because there was a time where I listened to Koala Kid and DJ Spooky like all the time. Like I got into DJ Shadow, I found out about Koala Kid, and then like this turntable of stuff I just love. I'm just, I don't know what it is. I just cannot get enough of it. But I stopped listening to it for some reason. I kind of drifted away. But probably because I listened to their album so much. I was like, all right, I'm done with that. And then I didn't find any new turntablists to be fascinated by. So yeah, just how it be.
Yeah. But also, just put out a general call to the audience. Anybody listening, shoot Ross some recommendations.
Yeah. Some sick,
let them know,
chopped and screwed and turntable stuff. Let me know.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, has the K-Mart fad passed though? Because like we kind of pointed out that one of the most amazing things to me about this is how quickly that these were produced. Just a couple of years or, a year, 1 to 2 years after the tapes are all dumped on archive.org. You have 2 amazing albums.
Yeah.
60 other tapes or whatever sitting out there.
Yeah. Attention K-Mart Choppers came out in 2017 and K-Mart 1989 came out in 2016. So yeah, the 2 years, year and a half of the archives release.
So I wonder how much of it they were able to go through in that time, or if like even a handful of tapes provided enough material to do these albums.
It's kind of the thing with viral things, right? There's a huge initial burst of popularity, but then like people drift away and then forget about it. They don't come back, like, because there's always another new viral thing to check out.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. I was curious how much other if anybody's working on creating other great music out of these, because it's hard. I think you said before we hit recording. Yeah, I'd say probably.
Yeah.
Or it like sneaks its way in, or it provides like a pre-distorted version of stuff to work into other vaporwave projects. Because if you search, you were saying before we hit record, if you search just like K-Mart on Bandcamp, there's tons of albums that come up that at least reference it, but you'd have to really listen to see how many actually like pull from those tapes, or are just Mallsoft albums that reference it, or
they just have K-Mart in the title. And
yeah, exactly. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, it's a really good convergence of like historical preservation and also like musical creation. Like you love to see it. And it's also, I wonder, like, because I haven't heard anything else like it since then, like in terms of like, oh, we found this huge archive of this ephemeral thing from the 80s or the 90s. Yeah. And then people like, oh my God, this is great. I'm going to make cool things of it. Like, I mean, there have been minor things like memes or minor trends of like the Wendy's Burgers grill skills training video, right? Which features an awful 80s rap. But like I haven't seen any vaporwave albums made sampling that or referencing that, but maybe I just haven't looked hard enough. But like I haven't seen anything organically just through the vaporwave community that hit the level of the K-Mart tapes.
Yeah, I think the K-Mart tapes are so unique in that they were sort of like this unauthorized taking of so much material over so much time that it doesn't being like kind of an unprecedentedly large dump of information about one thing, which is sort of, there's some novelty there. To go to your point, we do like to dig up and watch old VHS like training videos, but they're pretty few and far between. It's really just kind of the big ones like the Golden Corral, which, knife cutter, the Golden Corral
small
meat cutter.
Talk,
the small talk video, like kind of make small talk if you work at the Golden Corral.
The Crystal Pepsi.
It's Old Country Buffet.
Old Country Buffet. There's the Crystal Pepsi distribution. Here's what Crystal Pepsi's about. Yeah. A couple other things.
There's all the Wendy's ones.
Yeah.
There's some McDonald's ones and stuff, but there's no like, here's all the McDonald's training tapes from like 1985 or whatever.
No.
It's these little bits and pieces.
Yeah. It didn't lead to a watershed moment like the K-Mart tapes did. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be interesting. So, hey, if you're some weirdo out there and you have a stack of VHSs that are just, I don't know, Wendy's training videos or whatever, get them out there. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you've inspired you to go out and listen to some K-Mart inspired music or digitize your own outsider art collection of weird corporate media. Next episode, we're going to do something a little different. It's time to learn about a new genre. So I don't even know what inspired this choice, but we're going to dig into folktronica, which is something I know basically nothing about. So
I think literally it was like I found out it existed. I was like, that's worth talking about. Like that's literally it. I think it was around the time we were doing that Hauntology record label from the UK. And I found out they did folktronica albums. I was like, what is that? I don't know what that is. And
that's perfect. So if you know a lot about that, let us know in advance before we record, and maybe it'll help us not sound so uninformed.
Yeah.
But if you like this episode and you like what we do, we have a bunch more of them on our Patreon and Night Clerk Radio at patreon.com for bonus episodes. We have a very nice Discord full of interesting people. We have writings from Ross. We're going to work on some other rewards. Some video stuff is in the works. It's all buried under my real job, eating up all my time, unfortunately. But maybe we'll get to it at some point. You can also find us on Twitter at Night Clerk Radio. I am at Burke McBurkinson. Ross is at Ross Payton. And also, if you need to go to our website, it's nightclerkradio.com. You can also find us as Night Clerk Radio at pretty much any bit of social media detritus that's sitting out there on the internet. I don't know, Facebook.
Yeah, I did create a Mastodon account. I need to
a Mastodon account.
Yeah, eventually. I haven't like set up my profile or anything, but I registered an account. That's about it. So yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Yay.
You can also find our podcast pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts, wherever Simplecast decides to put us up. Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music now, I think. It's everywhere. We're everywhere Pine podcasts are found. And wherever you do listen to us, please take a moment to rate, review, comment, etc. All that kind of engagement really helps us get noticed. And we always advocate to build community, spread the word, talk to people, make friends, enemies, frenemies, and sit around and listen to K-Mart tapes with them. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.